Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite. It's wonderful to be among such intellectuals. And I hope everybody's doing well in these very tough times we're all going through. This is where we are in Lebanon. You can see us with respect to Syria and the Mediterranean Sea, and this is Rawafed School right here. The purpose of my presentation, I will be talking about the purpose, the outline of my presentation. I will be talking about the purpose, how we implemented first, how at our school leadership cascades, and the outcomes of this implementation as perceived by different stakeholders in the school, and future tasks to work on with respect to first. Anytime I talk about leadership, I like to start with a quote for Michael Fullan. And what I chose this quote because it mentions social process. And as you will see that the framework we devised at Rawafed, actually the social process is eminent all throughout it. And I think, and we all think that that's essential to have anything succeed. And I think that here with the Azhar project, I think we overlap here and we meet in this aspect. Now, implementing first, we have the first framework, but to avoid having delivering first to our teachers as a one-shot workshop, as the case happens with many professional development initiatives or tasks, we added a framework of professional development. So we took the first framework and we added to it a layer of professional development framework. We called it the Rawafed Professional Development Framework. Now, where first framework and Rawafed Professional Development Framework overlap in theories, I think we're both vehement advocates of experiential learning, cooperative learning, deep learning, and adult learning. Other tenets that we believe in Rawafed, and these underlie our professional development framework, are peer coaching and mentoring, assessment for learning, conferencing, and it subsumes reflection, feedback, planning for improvement, collaboration and interaction, PLCs, and I can see that these are also eminent in first framework. If I were to write my paper again, I would add to it visible thinking. Now, implementing first, it took place over a scholastic year. The biggest portion of the scholastic year, it started in November and it ended in late April of 2019. And this is the timeline we used. And as you see, we have 5 cycles. And the cycles are paced at a month apart, almost a month. We had to work around our school calendar. And between cycles, we have lots of tasks taking place. And this ended with summative assessment and finally certification. I'll just go into more details about how we implemented the cycles. So we started with training, and then application. Teachers applied their new learnings that they acquired from the training. Then assessment of performance, then reflection on performance, and then reviewing. And all of this took place with the help and support of coaches. So all along we had coaching going on. And this, in Arabic, we represented this cycle with the 5 T's, أو التاءات الخمسة, where each T is the first letter of each of these phases. تدريب, تطبيق, تقييم, تفكر, تذكر. Now, we had cycle 1, Now, because first consists of 5 cycles, of 5 domains, we gave each domain a cycle. So the first cycle was for the F domain, the I for the I domain, the second cycle, the third cycle for the R domain, and so on. So we had 5 cycles going on throughout the year, or one cycle leading into the other. And this ended with a summative evaluation. Now, between cycles, we had linking and summarizing activities. And we borrowed the term linking and summarizing from first. I mentioned coaching. Coaching was very important all throughout the process. Now, this is what coaching included. It included conducting meetings, assessment, both formatively and summatively, ongoing reflection all throughout, and assisting teachers in collecting data or evidence of their implementation. And these were compiled into portfolios that we took a look at the end of the year. Also, I mentioned assessment. Assessment was also all throughout because we had to know where we were going and how well we were doing. And assessment was done formatively and summatively. As for formative assessment, we did learning walks, lots of learning walks, lots of reflection on practice, portfolio compilation, interviews with students, G-form questionnaires, and checklists where teachers, they actually assessed their own performance. Now in learning walks, we had, the coaches were actually doing the learning walks, and one time we invited observers from outside the school. Portfolios included lesson plans, evidence, pictures, videos, reflection reports, checklists, and observation reports. And at the very end, we had classroom observation and a final G-form test. These are our external observers from Faculty of Education and from the Ministry of Education. So people who work in actual classroom observations. They visited our schools and conducted learning walks. And they did interviews with our students. Now, cascading of leadership. I think this program, or implementing first, helped us in eliciting so many leaders in the school. Now, how are leaders, or how are teachers and coordinators assigned or delegated leadership tasks? We worked on these both axes. So people who demonstrate high skill, high experience, high knowledge, and those who demonstrate independence, and they have the ability to drive themselves. So those who score high are more likely to be delegated leadership tasks. Now this is a plan of how cascading of leadership took place. We had, while implementing first, we had the educational consultant. She was overlooking the whole process of implementing the program. We had 2 trainers who scored high on this matrix. And we had coaches who were working along with the trainers. So these coaches, each coach would have a group of 4 or 5 teachers to work with and conduct all the coaching tasks. And what's interesting is that the groups of teachers, we often had teachers who demonstrated skill and acquiring of the new knowledge. And these would emerge as mentors who would provide support for other teachers in their groups who needed that support. So as we see, like we have a large number of the staff who are actually taking on leadership tasks. Now the outcomes as recorded by coaches, by external observers, by teachers, and by students. By teachers in their coaching sessions, they reported in their final reports that the overall morale was positive in the school. There was a common language that was established among schools, among teachers, and there was an automaticity of practice. So teachers, they began at the beginning, they were kind of reluctant, and at the end, they were very comfortable with the new practices. They knew the activity procedures, while at the beginning they were struggling with what do we do now, what do we do next. And we can see they're able to apply their practices as if we are observant, and they're flexible, and they're able to suggest new ideas. And I think that's very important if you want to work with autonomy. People, if we want people to be autonomous, they should be able to suggest their new ideas, and they should be problem solvers and accountable for their actions. And the coaches themselves, they benefited from the classroom observations, and they were eager to learn. So at the emotional level and at the practice level, we saw our teachers reported improvement. As reported by a questionnaire that the teachers completed at the end, it was found that teachers reported that working with FIRST, because working with modules where they went through that process of the 5 T's process, they reported that they learned the most from these. And they reported that they learned from interactive technology, where actually applying interactive technology module of professional development was very similar to applying FIRST, but it was not, the framework for professional development was not as refined. Teachers reported that also they benefited mostly when they worked in groups, the coaching groups. And students' interviews, when conducting interviews by students, the external observers, it was interesting that students were using words that are elicited from FIRST framework. So they would use the words reflect, review, check. They would use the names of activities that the teachers were integrating into their teaching. They mentioned rules, encourage, we saw these words, given chances to try again, move on, and this shows that they're aware that there is transitions in their classrooms. Variety of tasks. So these are just glimpses from the students' interviews. Now, steps we intended for 2019, 2020, we intended to gather more scientific evidence on the impact on students' achievement, the impact of this framework on student achievement. We intended to train coaches on coaching principles. So we had a lack in that all throughout. Evaluating coaches' practices and revisiting concepts based on this summative evaluation, and we started with this. And assign coaches and mentors to new teachers, so we'd mix and match coaches to new groups. Fortunately, we had the Lebanese Revolution, and that was in the first part of the year. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is amongst us, and we had to put so many projects on the side. And now we have taken a different direction in working, and we're working on implementing or distance learning. So that's our focus for this time. Inshallah, soon we'll be going back to normal. And thank you.
Perfect.